I've learned after 1 month in the parts business. Hasn't been a month, but I like, now that I have like the wisdom about running a business, and I have a good business partner, my buddy Mike. Some of you might have dealt with Mike if you bought a part from us. I think there's some lessons I've learned in the last month that are quite important. So we're going to look at some of those lessons about being in the parts business and what, like how I can apply them to my own shop, and then how they've affected me personally as a business owner. The first thing that I would like to bring up is that when you're in the parts business, you spend a lot of time looking for stuff. And that's one of the reasons why I don't really enjoy being in the parts business, because I'm not as well organized with my parts as I should be. If I were better organized, or I knew how to be better organized, I probably wouldn't have to spend so much time looking for things. But it is very hard to stay organized when you have thousands and thousands of parts. And so the question I'm always asking myself is, how can I organize all this stuff better? The thing is, there has to be an inventory system to keep track of it for you. And my friend John Douglas has been so generous to try to help me figure out that inventory system, but then you have to have a lot of time in place to set it up. And I don't have that. So finding the time to get organized is a big deal. The second one is the type of customer I want to work with. So we generally get 3 types of customers. Customers who come to us with a whole list of parts. Customers who come to us needing one part, but they may not be prepared to about what that obsolete or hard to find part costs could be. And then the third one is you have your ideal customer who is really happy to find the part that you happen to have and is willing to pay a fair price for you and for them. So let's talk about that first type of customer. We get a lot of customers that will send us a list of parts, and this is fine. I don't mind getting a list. The thing is that when I get that list, I'm going to look for the item on the list that I have in front of me or closest to me, and I'm going to test the customer. And I'm going to say, of all the items you mentioned, I have this item or this other item, these 2 items or these 3 items. Please buy these 3, here are the prices. One of them might be very expensive because it's hard to find. Like one of the items we recently floated, and I hope Mike doesn't mind me bringing up this example, was a warm-up regulator. A guy calls me, or calls Mike looking for a warm-up regulator for a 6.9. And I happen to have a new old stock one, and it's the substitution part, meaning that at some point Bosch made some changes to the part after 6.9 production ended, and they issued a new part number for it, meaning that this warm-up regulator should actually deliver better running and driving and starting and idling and fuel efficiency characteristics than the version it replaced. Does that mean the old version is bad? No, it just means that this newer version is probably better. The problem was that the customer was not prepared to pay the, $900 and something that I wanted for this part. Why? Because A, they don't exist anywhere. B, it was expensive to acquire in the first place. C, I had to spend hours looking for one and verifying that it's the right one. And then I had to hold it in inventory for years. And then last, I'm responsible for that item if it doesn't work. And so I want it to be worth my trouble. And unfortunately, in today's world, when you have so much stuff to deal with, when you're responsible for so many things, selling a part for $15 or $20 is just not, I'm not saying it's not appealing. You have to sell a bunch of them, but when you're going to spend hours and hours and hours of your time and your knowledge, etc., $20 is not a great reward, especially when you're not going to see it until you're an old man. A nice reward is several $100s. That's an incentive. That's why people have stopped showing up to work at so many businesses, because they just don't feel incentivized. So I can understand that. So you know, when you have a list of parts, if you ever come to me with a list of parts, I only have 1 or 2 parts, please buy them from me because I've worked very hard to provide them. I may not have everything on your list. This is a big problem with exhaust systems. I'm not going to have all the pieces of an exhaust system, but if I can find 1 piece or 2 pieces of a system and say, hey, I've got these pieces, you can buy them and then source the rest elsewhere, I think that's fair. Better 1 genuine Mercedes part from Pierre Hedary's than none. Now, the second type of customer that's a little offset by the cost, I mean, sometimes things are just expensive. They're expensive to buy, store, preserve, catalog, inventory, ship, etc. And I don't like that certain Mercedes parts cost so much, but, you know, I have to ask myself the question, what is a fair price for every part? If a customer calls me and says, I've been looking for this part for the past year and I can't find it, do you have it? I say, yes, I have it. How badly do you need it? And I tell them, like, let's say it's an NOS Bosch AL72X alternator. Let's say that the AL72X is, you know, $550 for an NOS rebuilt one. If somebody argues with me and said, I'd like to pay $350 for it, I said, I'm just going to wait for somebody who's going to pay $550. Sorry. You know, that's just the way it works. It's business. You know, and the nice thing about this business is my feelings aren't really in it like they are in my shop. In my shop, I'm always trying to accommodate people. In this business, I want to sell them a good part. I want to take care of them. I want to make them happy, but I don't have to give up my bottom line. I don't have to do that. I shouldn't have to do it. The last customer, there are quite a few of you, and I really appreciate you guys because you know what you want and you understand how difficult it is to find it, so no discussion. You know, it's a great thing. And you're the people I opened this business for. Now, one of the other lessons that I've learned about the parts business is that in order for the parts business to actually work, you have to focus on items that are either A, very unlikely to fail, like a belt or a hose, or B, items that I guess the only way to describe it is there's a good chance that they're probably going to be okay. Here's a good example. A Bosch alternator that was rebuilt in the 80s, probably not going to fail. A vacuum pump that was built in the 90s by Pierre for a Mercedes OM603 engine, probably not going to fail. But when you start selling stuff that has a high failure rate, like a Europarts fan clutch or Europarts accumulator, that's not so good. You might end up with a lot of comebacks and you develop a bad reputation. So you don't want to sell parts that are going to break your reputation. So reputation is something that I'm always concerned about myself. I don't know about my friend Mike. I think Mike is, I'm just kidding, Mike. Mike is probably more concerned about a reputation than I am, actually. So if there's a quality control problem, he and I always deal with it because he's motivated to deal with it. So I think that that's very good. But all in all, have I enjoyed the parts business? Well, it's been a mixed bag. I enjoy it because I don't have to have the high degree of customer interaction. And I, as an introvert, struggle with human interaction sometimes. I enjoy it because it allows me to maintain contact with people who love these cars and just want to keep them going. They don't necessarily need all of my help. I don't need to fully invest my entire being into supplying an air conditioning bracket for a 126 turbo diesel. I don't need to spend my entire weekend preparing for shipping out an NOS clock. And yet there's still a pretty decent return on the investment, which is, you know, par for the course if you're running a successful business. So that's why I like it. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it informative. If you're so inclined, feel free to message me or email us at nlabinzparts@gmail.com. I'll see you later.